The stream has started, so you can start your meeting whenever you have a quorum.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Steve.
Is somebody counting us down today, Viv, to the 9 o'clock?
Actually, no, because this is not a televised meeting, there will be no countdown, but you are less than 1 minute if you want to start right at 9.
Okay, thank you, Viv. Good morning, everybody. We'll be starting when we hit the 9 o'clock. Looks like we've now hit the 9 o'clock hour.
We have.
And so I think first thing is if we can talk about whether or not we have a quorum. So I see that myself and Councilmember Freeman are here from the city, and we need one other city member to be here. Do we have any other city members, city council members? I think we're one short. And oh, there comes the Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, good. So we have a quorum on our side. And Commissioner Howerton, it looks like you, Commissioner Jacobs. Is there a third member from the county at this point?
I know that Commissioner Lom had hurt herself, so I'm not sure if
Okay.
she's on or not.
All right. Let's see if
I see Commissioner Carter is with us.
Okay, is she an alternate?
Good morning.
No, I'm not.
Okay, there's Commissioner Alam. So it looks like we're good.
Okay.
Okay, great. We have a quorum. I want to call this meeting of the Joint City County Meeting Committee to order, and I want to welcome everyone this morning. I'm going to try to emulate Commissioner Howerton's chairing from the last meeting and move us along in good time. We have 4 items on our agenda, and I want to just discuss the agenda a little bit because Councilmember Freeman would like us also to hear, to review a video from Durham Tri. So if with your all's permission, let's just discuss that here at the beginning a little bit. Councilmember Freeman, do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yes, thank you. I think there was some miscommunication. I know when the clerk asked for items, I shared the Durham Tri and Durham Children's Initiative items, but I think they got dropped from the agenda. And so I know that Dr. Boone couldn't be here this morning, or she was going to try and be here this morning, but with the miscommunication, she just kind of went with the appointment she had already. And so she shared a video. It's like 2 minutes long. And if we could just share that update from the community health workers that she's been working with, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you, Councilmember. Do you know who has that video?
Diana should have it.
All right. Madam Clerk, do you have the video, and would it be possible at the end of the meeting to show that if we so chose?
Mr. Mayor, yes, I can pull that up at the end of the meeting.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, we have a not a long agenda today, so I think we'll have plenty of time for that. Thank you. All righty, our first agenda item is, I guess we should, do we need to take attendance, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can call the roll.
Go ahead.
Mayor Schewel,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Freeman,
Present.
Chair of the Durham County Commissioners Howerton,
Here.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Here.
Commissioner Alam,
Here.
Commissioner Burns. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
and I want to welcome Commissioner Alam to this illustrious group. I know you'll enjoy it. Glad to have you. Our first item of business is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a motion, or are there any motion to approve the minutes, or are there any corrections or additions?
Move approval.
Moved by Commissioner Howerton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jacobs. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Schewel,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Chair Howerton,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
Commissioner Alam,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I believe Commissioner Burns is an alternate. Is that correct? Yes,
That's
thank you.
correct. I was just gonna say the same thing. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. All
And
right,
one more
thank you. The
question.
motion passes unanimously.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor, but
Sure.
Commissioner Carter, is she an alternate or is she?
She's just attending the meeting because she can't stay away from us.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And Commissioner Carter, we're glad to have you. All right. Our next item is the discussion of the continuation of the crime cabinet. And this, I believe, was brought to us by our county commissioners. And I'll turn this over to Commissioner Howerton to begin our discussion. And I know we have Councilmember Reese is, I asked him to also attend. He's been co-chairing the group. So Commissioner Howerton, I'm going to turn it over to you and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Mayor Schulz. I think I need to turn it over to Councilman Reese. He's been serving on that committee, and I'd like to hear what his thinking and recommendations surround it.
Great, thank you very much. Councilmember Reese, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Chair Howerton. Appreciate being here. If I recall correctly, this is the first time I've ever attended a joint city-county meeting. So this is very exciting. I guess I share that honor with Commissioner Alam. So congratulations, we're doing great. So far, so good. I wanted to thank Chair Howerton for raising this important issue. At the last meeting of the Durham Crime Cabinet, which was in December of 2020, Chair Reckhow of the Crime Cabinet and I told the folks that were assembled there that we were going to take some time after that meeting, the last meeting with Commissioner Reckhow, to really try to figure out what the future of the Crime Cabinet ought to be. I had a really good and long conversation with Commissioner Reckhow prior to that last meeting, and in that conversation, Commissioner Reckhow really raised the question about the future of the Crime Cabinet with me, and we had a really good conversation about it. Subsequent to that, I was able to speak with Chair Howerton about it last week, and then after that conversation, I spent some time talking to Gudrun Parmer with the Criminal Justice Resource Center, who has been one of the key. The Crime Cabinet has never had staff, but Gudrun Parmer has been one of the folks that has helped organize a lot of the content for the Crime Cabinet. And between those three conversations, it seemed clear, at least to me, that the consensus among the three folks that I spoke to was that it may make sense to wind down the Crime Cabinet. And here's kind of the summary of what I got out of those conversations. First of all, when the Crime Cabinet started, gosh, I want to say almost 20 years ago, it was really the only game in town when it comes to bringing the key stakeholders from the criminal justice system here in Durham together to talk about issues that weren't getting talked about anywhere else, and to provide our broader community the opportunity to engage with that group and to propose out-of-the-box solutions for tackling some of the thorniest issues in our criminal justice system here in Durham. And I think it's fair to say that over its time, the crime cabinet was responsible for servicing a lot of really important issues, raising potential solutions. I think especially early in its life, the crime cabinet had some real direction and focus, and was able to make a difference. I think since that time, what you've seen is a number of other organizations and standing committees, task forces have risen up in the space that the crime cabinet kind of occupies, and in a way, in the space that the crime cabinet created in our community for leadership to come together. And it, at this point, I think it really begs the question, is the work that the crime cabinet started doing happening in lots of other places now? And I think the other thing that we need to remember is that we have together created a community safety and wellness task force that I think stands to really carry the mantle forward into some really brand new areas, or at least areas that the crime cabinet was maybe underrepresented to bring in. And so I think the other thing that we can't go unsaid is that in many ways the crime cabinet was the passion project of Commissioner Reckow, and she provided the impetus for its creation, the energy behind all of the work that it's done, and it's not entirely clear to me what the crime cabinet is if Commissioner Reckow isn't there to drive it forward. And so I say that as the co-chair of the crime cabinet, and to say that, especially after my conversation with Gudrun Palmer yesterday, I think ultimately Gudrun's looked at this for a long time and decided that there really ought to be one of two paths. Number one, the crime cabinet should be funded with its own independent staff to drive agendas, to organize community stakeholders around specific ideas, solutions, and implementation within our criminal justice system. That is a model that exists in other communities around this kind of group. The second path is that the crime cabinet stop meeting in its current form and the members begin to look for ways to engage in the other organizations that have proliferated in this space since the crime cabinet first began. And what I told Gudrun yesterday was, based on where I see the budgets for our two governing entities going, at least in this upcoming cycle, I don't see a path for the first option right now. And so that is the sum and total of my wisdom on the subject. I personally, as I said at our last crime cabinet meeting, I am incredibly conflicted about this issue. That's why I have restricted my remarks to, here are the conversations I've had and here's the consensus that I've heard, because I have gotten a lot out of my involvement with the crime cabinet. I began engaging with the crime cabinet before I ever thought about running for office. And so it is maybe a little bit emotional for me. But I do think that there's a lot of wisdom in what I've heard and what I've expressed to the Joint City County Committee today. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have about what comes next.
So I want to, Ms. Schewel, I just want to comment just briefly on what Councilman Reese just said. You know, we really want to give homage to Ellen Reckow, and going all the way back to Howard Clement. They were the ones that really started this. And they did some really, really great work. They created a lot of initiatives when it comes to around the criminal justice initiatives. So we really just want to honor them and honor the work that they have done. And in talking with Charlie and Ellen before she left, there have been so many things, like Charlie said, that has been created, so many initiatives, so many task force. that have been created, that what we don't want to do is duplication. I think that is the thing that is a concern for me, is that the duplication sometimes just burn people out. And just want to make sure that the activities and the task force and the things that we create are being effective, and having people to use their time and energy and resources the best possible. And I know that a lot of people are committed to being a part of that, of the crime cabinet. So shifting it may be a little bit concern for some of the community people. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Councilmember Reese. Colleagues, I'm going to ask your advice on how to proceed here. I will try to summarize what I've heard, which is both from Commissioner Howerton and Councilmember Reese, which is that there are other groups that are doing a lot of, or maybe all of the work that the Crime Cabinet is currently doing, that the Crime Cabinet was once a group that stood alone in the work that it was doing, but now many other groups have arisen to be doing the work that it's doing, and that it's now mostly duplicative of the work of others. I think that's what I heard, trying to summarize here so we can discuss it. And not forgetting the history of Howard Clements and Ellen Reckhow and the work that they did to get this going and to keep it going. So what is your pleasure, colleagues? Any other, I've never been on the Crime Cabinet myself and have not, and so don't feel that I have a lot to add to this discussion, but I'm interested in if any other colleagues want to pitch in. I want to say, first of all, that I see Sheriff Burkhead, and if Sheriff Burkhead would like to pitch in, I'd love to hear from him. Sheriff, do you have any thoughts that you want to offer us?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. I just logged in, so I missed the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. We were discussing the Crime Cabinet, and I thought when you logged in, you might want to discuss it. We were discussing the potential of discontinuing the Crime Cabinet because it's now being duplicated by a lot of other work. And so if you have any comments on that, we'd love to have them. But of course, you can give that some thought if you'd like. Who else would like to comment? Is there anyone else? Commissioner Jacobs.
Thank you for your comments, Chair Howerton and Councilmember Reese. When I think about, and it's been mentioned, we've got Criminal Justice Advisory Committee, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, Gang Reduction Task Force, and, Violent Crime Roundtable, and Crime Cabinet. And you think about how much, and that's just within city and county government. And then, of course, you've got all the groups and things happening in the community. It also hits home what an important issue this is, and how much all of the issues surrounding crime have an impact on people's lives in our community. So I think it's important to say we're not saying this is not an important issue. It is. And we know it's so connected to many other things. But I think it's symbolic that we're talking about ending the Crime Cabinet as we are giving birth to the Community Wellness and Safety Task Force, because it's also, I think, symbolizes our different way of looking at this issue. I have to say, it even feels like something like Crime Cabinet, almost, if the feeling of it feels dated to me, even when we look at this issue. And I think I'm excited about the work of the Community Wellness and Safety Task Force, which I think will take us in a different direction, as Charlie has mentioned. So I appreciate you, Councilmember Reese, as a member, as one of the co-chairs, taking this position, and all the good work that's come out of it. But I do, as Chair Howerton said, we do have limited resources, and I hope that we will all be able to put the resources that we need to behind the Wellness and Safety Task Force, because we know it will take our resources in different forms. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Jacobs. Any other comments, colleagues, at this point? All right. I think then,
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, I apologize.
It's okay, no worries. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to also, I feel similarly to you. I've never served on the crime cabinet, and so I think that, but I have served on boards where it was clear that while they had been very useful in the past, that the current constitution of the council or the city did not require them anymore. And so I think it's good that we're having a conversation about whether or not we should continue the board. I think that sometimes we continue things longer than we really need to, and duplicate our efforts and spend a lot of time on work that's being done elsewhere, because we just don't have these conversations and kind of just go with inertia. So I wanted to appreciate folks for bringing this to us. And I always am in favor of streamlining, and I'm happy to go with support the will of the folks who have served on this committee in deciding whether or not it needs to continue. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm not sure, is Councilmember Middleton with us today at this point? I believe he is.
I am, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, friends. Good morning.
Councilmember Middleton.
Yes, sir.
Would you also comment for us on this?
Absolutely. Forgive me for not turning my camera on. I got some bandwidth issues this morning. I want to thank Councilor Reese for, I think, his on point comments about the crime cabinet. So I've served and serve on the crime cabinet. And one of the things I appreciated about it was just the diversity of folk that were present. I don't know if that many community folk are represented at the Violent Crime Roundtable, which I've sat in at sometimes. It seems like those are just particularly principals from LEO organizations and pretty much in-house folks. So I don't know that the diversity is duplicated, but I certainly can appreciate concerns about duplicating and kind of, redundant. In Nassau, redundancy in engineering is a good thing, but maybe not so much for municipal government. I guess for me, there are two questions, at least two questions when you're talking about winding something down. Has it met its purpose, or is it not meeting its purpose? If the mission's fulfilled, then you can talk about a wind down. And if the mission isn't fulfilled, but it's not doing a good job, then you talk about a wind down. And I really don't know what the verdict is on that when it comes to the crime cabinet. I'm extremely grateful to Commissioner Reckow and my frat brother and dear colleague, Councilman Clement, whose seat I occupy now, for the work they've done. And I've learned a lot in the crime cabinet. I would say, however, that the notion that the Wellness and Safety Task Force will somehow pick up on the work, I don't know if that's necessarily the case, and maybe it doesn't need to. I mean, I certainly think we should be looking at what we do in the city differently. But if you will recall, some of the people that are in the crime cabinet weren't even welcome on the Community Wellness and Safety Task Force when it was first introduced, and there was a big hullabaloo about who should even be involved on the Wellness and Safety Task Force. And it was a very insular debate. It was amongst those of us that are kind of already ensconced in government. And there was a particular constituency in the community who didn't want certain people in. So the notion that the Wellness and Safety Task Force is somehow representative or continuing the work of the crime cabinet, I don't think that's necessarily a defensible position. And it may not be, and that may not necessarily be a bad thing. Maybe we do need to do things differently, but there's no one-to-one similarity. Because I remember the debate that attended the birth of the Wellness and Safety Task Force. So, I'll defer to the judgment of all of my colleagues. That's it's a long way of saying I don't know if it's time to wind it down yet. I don't know if the original mission has been fulfilled. I agree totally with Commissioner Jacobs that this is still a very important issue, and if we're going to wind it down, I think we need to be able to explain why it's either not fulfilling its mission or it's not working to ameliorate the situation that we're dealing with. But I do think it's important that we have a place where it's as egalitarian as the crime cabinet, where as many voices from the community are welcome. And at least two of the things that have been named, the roundtable, that seems to be largely principles of LEOs. And with respect to the Wellness and Safety Task Force, there were some folk who were in fact not welcome at that table. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll defer to our judgment. And whatever we do, we know that this is an issue that we will need to keep working on and throw our full ingenuity and creativity and brilliance to solving for the residents of our county. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, council member. Colleagues, I'm going to try to move us on from this item, but I'll first take any last comments that we have. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a couple questions because I also have not served and have not been a part of that task force. I just wanted to know if there were resources or funding that was allocated towards this initiative or task force. And if
Councilmember Reese, can you answer that question?
No, there never has been, as far as I know.
No, there's no resources.
And then just a second question, acknowledging that there was a long list of meetings that I think are kind of serving in that same purpose along those same lines. And I just wanted to know if there's reports that come out of each one of them, because I haven't seen any. And so I just want to make sure that even though we're talking about this one, there are like 4 or 5 others that aren't as readily available to myself as a council member or the public. And so just making sure that there's some transparency about where these meetings are, how they're happening, who's on the boards or committees or task force. I think in that sense, I do appreciate how the Community Health and Safety Task Force has come about, because there is a lot more transparency. But in the same sense that Councilmember Middleton mentioned, I think there are specifics that need to be carried through, and it may not fit in the Community Health and Safety Task Force, but I think the conversations we're having them now. I would also add that I think there's a similar narrative that's developed with the Northeast Central Durham subcommittee. And so I would love to know if there's a process we go through to evaluate whether committees are necessary or not, or, just kind of internally what we're doing, because I don't think that's included in our council procedures, but that's my own side note. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Chair Howerton, and then we'll move to Councilmember Reese.
Just quickly, couple of things. Councilwoman Freeman, there have been reports. Ellen always sent out a report. And again, there was no resources other than you got to eat. The resources came from grants and things that Ellen would apply for. A lot of times we would go to our conferences and she'd come back with an initiative, an idea that was happening someplace else, and present it to this group, and it would take legs. So as I'm listening to Council Member Middleton, I start to reflect. I wasn't one of the committee members, but I attend the meetings because I wanted to know what was happening. One of the things that it would take would be somebody else to step up, along a county person along with a city person, to really put some energy behind that, because right now Ellen is no longer in that position. So there's no energy working with a city person, city council person, that gives the folks that you just talked about a space to create ideas, because I see the Health and Wellness Task Force different. It's different than what the Crime Cabinet has been. Not different, bad or good, it's just a different focus. So that's my take on that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilmember Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Freeman was also asking, I think, about reports and composition of the other kind of boards and task forces that are occupying this space. Is that also correct, Councilmember Freeman? So what I was going to volunteer to do as a deliverable from this meeting is to kind of survey that landscape and provide that listing for the members, identify the repository of any of the reports from those boards or task forces, because I think that's what I heard Councilmember Freeman getting at was folks are saying there's all these other groups that are meeting out there. I don't know what they're doing, who's on them, or kind of where there's any reports or output from those groups. And I'm very happy to volunteer to collect that information and provide that to the members of Joint City County, if that would be helpful to folks.
I appreciate that, Councilmember Reese, and I would be willing to help as well because I would love to know where to even look. So that's
awesome. Great. We will get on that, you and me.
Thank you, council members. Colleagues, I'm going to just ask if we're ready to move on to the next item. I think we are. I appreciate everybody's comments. It sounds like we don't have an absolute consensus here, but I think we've got a great basis for making this decision, or further discussion to make this decision. And we'll get some more information from Councilmember Reese. And maybe, Councilmember, do you think you'd be ready by the next Joint City County for that?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thanks for Councilmember Freeman volunteering to help you out. Any further comments on this, colleagues? Okay, super. Thank you so much for bringing this to us. We're now going to move to our third item on the agenda, which is the establishment of the Racial Equity Commission and bylaws. And we are joined today by, I believe, Judge Elaine O'Neill, Ms. Kaaren Haldeman, as well as two of our county staff members, Ms. Rashied-Henry and Ms. Pierce. And it looks like I see Judge O'Neill and I see Ms. Haldeman. We are glad to have you with us. We appreciate your awesome service as the chairs of our City Racial Equity Task Force. And I do want to also give Ms. Haldeman a special shout out for being the speaker at our Joint City County MLK event. And she did a wonderful job. She challenged us, and I want to appreciate that. So glad to have everybody. And I see now that Ms. Henry and Ms. Pierce are also on the line, and I'm going to turn it over to this group and ask them to please present in the order in which you have planned.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's good to see everybody. And as Howard Clement used to say, it's good to be seen rather than viewed. So I am happy to see you all this morning. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to our mayor and to our Mayor Pro Tem, who served as our liaison, for coming up, and all of the city council members for coming up with this brilliant idea. I'd also like to thank our chairwoman, Howerton, who contacted us about these bylaws, and I think that we now have a foundational stone. This is a great day. This is a great day for Durham County, and I appreciate the opportunity to have served as the chair of this wonderful task force, along with my co-chair, Kaaren Haldeman, For 20 months, we sat down around the table, shed a lot of tears, had a lot of fun, did a lot of hard work, and we produced our love letter to our beloved city. So with that being said, we realized early on that this was pioneering work, that pretty much it had been done in bits and pieces across the country, but nothing like this had occurred that we could find in the manner in which we were charged with doing this work. And subsequent to the completion of our task, we have received calls from Alaska. We have been on phone calls to New York. We have been reached by people in North Carolina, and we're continuing to interact with people all over the state. I think we have a call coming up in the next week or so, where we will continue to push this work forward. But today, I congratulate you on these bylaws. We have vetted those through RETF, and we are in agreement with those bylaws with the caveat. We received a letter yesterday and some information, a letter late last night from the Office of Youth, Ms. Laura Khalil, and we are in support of her recommendations. One of the things that we always thought about when we were sitting around the table is who's missing? Who's missing from this conversation? We want to make sure that the voices that we are hearing from people who we may not hear from ordinarily, and our youth would be those persons in a number of instances. So I appreciate her catching that. As I stated before, this is pioneering work. So there are going to be times when you need to adjust and readjust, and it continues to grow as we begin to develop this work. So we appreciate her for catching that and for allowing us to chime in on her recommendations this morning. With that being said, I'll turn it over to my co-chair, Kaaren Haldeman, and thank you all. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Chairperson Howerton, Chairwoman Howerton, and all of the other city council members and county commissioners. Great work.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Haldeman, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chair Howerton. Thank you, Elaine. Thanks for giving us all this work for 21 months. You know, I was sitting around doing nothing. So it was nice to have some extra work. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and all of the support we've gotten from people. We are still rolling in support from all these local organizations, anybody from a grassroots group just popping up to somebody who's been around for a while wanting to know more about this report and inviting us to come and speak with them. So the report still has legs. We're still rolling with it. As Elaine said, you know, today is a great day. It is a great day when you start to see things really taking shape. And there's not a whole lot I can add in terms of the bylaws. We were really missing youth representation, and that was something we felt was really important. And so when Ms. Khalil sent the note last night, and we had Dan McKinney on our task force also support that change to the bylaws in the hopes that we would have more youth representation. And I believe Ms. Khalil said ages 14 to 24. So not, it's still a wide range of ages there. It would take some support, which I believe her office has offered. And also with the understanding that all of our youth aren't in DPS. So making sure that we have diversity of experience among our youth. Some are out of school, some are disconnected, some have been pushed or pulled out of schools. We have charter school students. So we do have a bulk of the report is around education. So we want to be really clear that we have youth representation that just isn't tokenism, that there's a robust representation there. So I'll just echo all that Elaine said. It has been a pleasure. It has been so gratifying to watch all of this roll out and start to really put some meat on the bones. And I think this is another step in that direction. So it's always good to be here with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it, Ms. Haldeman. We appreciate the great work you all have done as our leaders. And I'm going to now ask Ms. Rashied-Henry or Ms. Pierce if they have any comments to add.
Hi, good morning. This is Kweli Rashied-Henry. Racial Equity Officer for Durham County. And I too just want to double tap everything that's been said about this monumentous occasion in which this esteemed body is considering the creation of a Racial Equity Commission that's going to further our efforts to advance racial equity across the county. And I think the considerations that have been brought to light and importantly considered along the way are essential to just thinking about this process and how it's going to help further a lot of the great work that has already happened. Coming into this process, learning about the work of the task force, the work that the county had embarked on in terms of being a part of the national network known as GARE. You know, all of this has really helped to establish a really solid foundation to the work that I've been charged to do. So just knowing that the city and county are attempting to be in collaboration and in support of one another to establish the commission and really think carefully and strategically about the bylaws is just really exciting. So I just want to lift up everything that's been said and to ensure that folks know that I'm in full support of this effort and would definitely support in any way that I can, and also want to appreciate what's been raised in terms of the consideration of it having our youth engaged in this process and having a seat at the table. So thank you again for the opportunity, and I am here as a support. I also want to just make one comment about the documentation that you received this morning. It does not have some of the important questions and comments that were brought up at one of our last county meetings. And so we'll make sure that you have the revised document after this meeting. And I've already shared that information with Diana. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rashied-Henry. Ms. Pierce, did you have anything did you want to add?
Just a few things. Good morning to everyone. Joanne Pierce, General Manager for Health and Wellbeing with Durham County. I just want to really lift up the Racial Equity Task Force. After doing this work for about this work, meaning racial equity work in a couple of other states and places, and when the Racial Equity Task Force was established, you know, I had my eye on them to see what they were up to. And I will tell you, what they produced is amazing. And it really is a national model. Just the work, they came and actually did some deeper level work and what the product is and the recommendations. I echo what Judge O'Neill said and Dr. Haldeman, that folks are reaching out across the country asking, how did you all do that? And so I applaud the city. I applaud the Racial Equity Task Force and the community for working to get that together. It's amazing. And one of the recommendations, obviously, is the Racial Equity Commission. And the fact that this can actually be realized in a short period of time, because this is a short period of time, is just nothing short of amazing. And that speaks to Durham County as a whole, that we're able to do this. And so it's with that, I'm just so proud that to be a part of the Durham community and to serve in any capacity that I can do to support this. And just know, and hopefully we can sit with the fact that a Racial Equity Commission to embed in our organization, to institutionalize racial equity, is just amazing. And so thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pierce. All right, colleagues, we really appreciate those comments. And now I'll open it up to council members and commissioners for any comments that they may have. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Judge O'Neill and Co-Chair Haldeman. I really appreciate your work and have been raving about it since the report. The love letter definitely did it. I just wanted to just take a moment and just appreciate also the work of Ms. Pierce in acknowledging that she's nationally recognized for doing this type of work, and the fact that the county actually brought her here to Durham from Texas, all the way from Texas, and all the work that she did there is amazing. I want to just make sure that I note, like, the county's been moving in this direction for a while, even bringing in Ms. Rashied-Henry as a staffer, and then also, you know, trying to build it out. And so I appreciate what the county's been doing, and then kind of fast tracking us along to get the commission up and running is just really helpful, because I've been also getting those calls and those questions, and acknowledging that I serve on the National League of Cities Race Equity and Leadership Committee. I've been trying to tout Durham, but it's been a little bit tenuous. And so I just want to just note that I appreciate that the bylaws are written. I know that there'll be questions, and I think that there's been a lot of thought put into the process, and I'll just leave it at that. But thank you all.
Thank you, Council Member. Other comments, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you everyone who's been working on this. Really appreciate all of y'all's efforts to get this recommendation realized and start this work moving. I have a couple of questions. Some of them are more technical. I think the biggest kind of big picture question is whether we should also be involving the school district in the task force work, or sorry, in the commission work. And I know there's been a couple of conversations about that on the task force. There was an education committee that did quite a bit of work, and I think they actually had more recommendations than any other subcommittee. And so thought that that would be something worth continued consideration, and maybe a discussion with some of our school board members about how to engage the school board in continuing and being a part of the commission on an ongoing way. And then there's the issue about stipends, I think, is the other big kind of substantive issue on the city side. We have a budget request coming through our budget cycle. It's the same request that we had last budget cycle to provide stipends to all of the members of our boards and commissions. But we don't really have a system right now to give stipends to specific boards, with the exception of like a couple of planning boards, and I don't really know how that happens. So we need to do a little bit more research on how we would do stipends, how that would come out of the budget, and if we pass our budget proposal, which I hope that we do, because it's something we've been talking about and wanting to do for a long time, to just give everybody stipends and it's not an issue. But if we don't pass that, then I think we would have to think a little bit more on how we would make stipends happen if we felt that it was appropriate to give this board stipends without giving everybody a stipend. Yeah, there are a couple other more like technical bylaws pieces that I don't think we really need to discuss. I'll just send them to somebody for consideration. But those two, I feel like those two questions are things that we should probably look into a little bit more. And thanks y'all again for moving this forward. It's really great to continue this work and get this thing off the ground. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioner Jacobs.
Well, thank you. And this is exciting. We just discussed this, I think it was last Monday at our work session, and it was really serendipitous that we have the joint city county meeting coming up this week, and then we're meeting with the school board next Tuesday. So the stars really aligned with being able to move this forward really quickly. And I also want to echo and acknowledge all of the incredible work from the task force, Judge O'Neill and Kaaren, and also all of the staff, Kweli, Joanne, everybody who has been a part of this. And but I think Mayor Pro Tem and I are on the same wavelength, because when we discussed this at our board, I had suggested that we make sure we include the school board in this conversation. And so we'll have the opportunity next week to get that on our agenda with them. And I would also raise the issue about stipends as well, because on our end, we haven't looked at it as deeply as it sounds like City Council has, but we also have a system that I'm not sure what is the basis for the decision making. So it's another great opportunity when we're thinking about equity to really understand our policies and what is our basis for decision making about who gets a stipend and who doesn't. So I'm welcoming you're getting us to look at something else that we're doing policy wise. Anyway, so I look forward to next steps and getting feedback from city council members, and then also bringing this to the school board. Thank you. And I'd love to see whatever the recommendations were from the Office on Youth. If you all could share those with us, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Other comments at this point? Chair Howerton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, a couple of things. I want to thank the City Council for bringing this to light to begin with. And I can't help but thank all the incredible task force and the co-chairs and my incredible staff, Joanne, Kweli, thank you so much. And one of the things that I really want us to acknowledge is that the community pushed the commissioners to take this on. When the petition of 600 citizens was signed and presented to Durham County commissioners, that this was one of the things that they wanted us to take on, one of the goals out of the task force. So I want to acknowledge them that they brought this to us. And one of the early conversations that we had after talking with the task force is that we can't ask people to do this work. Now, they've been working for 2 years and they had to bring their brown bags from home for lunch. We can't ask citizens to do this work because this is some serious work. And we've had conversations with the manager, and we have to have conversations. We hadn't had conversations. I hadn't had conversations with the full board because we needed to have something to present. Because, they got to see, my board have to see some numbers. So that is one of the conversations that we'll be taking up. But we needed to get the city and the school has been a part of this conversation. And as Commissioner Jacobs said, the school, it's on the school board's agenda next week when we meet with them. So the inclusiveness is here. That's the only way we can make it work. So I am very, very excited about this work, and people are calling us from Tennessee and Canada. It's like, how are they doing their work when they're watching what we're doing way here? But this is an important issue that I am totally psyched about. So thank you, and it's going to be hard work. I know that there's nothing, as Ms. O'Neill and Kaaren said, this is not something that we've done before. So trying to make it look like what other boards and commissions have looked like is not going to work. So I'm looking for it. Hard work is not something that I'm afraid of. So let's get it on.
Thank you, Commissioner Howerton. Colleagues, I want to try to think about how to move this forward now. We have a couple of things on the table that we know we need to take up. One is the issue of the stipends. I've heard a lot of agreement on that. And the other is, and sort of how to make that happen. And the other is the issue of the involvement of the school board. And so exactly what would that look like? Would they also participate in the appointment of members, that kind of thing? And so I guess I'll I want to figure out a process to how to move this forward between the council and the commission so that we can go ahead and make this happen with dispatch. There's some decisions that need to get made. And one possibility is that we, Commissioner Howard and I could appoint a member of the council and you could appoint a commissioner and we could talk they could talk those issues out and help lead that if you thought that would be a good idea. Or colleagues, I'm open to any other ideas you all might have, but I think we do need to have a way in which our boards are communicating outside of this meeting, which happens infrequently, to go ahead and get this moving forward. I know that the council will be taking up the bylaws soon, and we very much appreciate them, but it does sound like there's still a couple things to get settled. So what is your pleasure? Commissioner Howard, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that we have to meet with the school. That's number one, and get their feedback. And then it would be so great if we could all three boards could meet together. And then we don't have so many meetings. If we could just all meet together and just put the ideas on the table, and then we could let staff flesh it out. Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy for representatives from each of the boards to meet. I worry a little bit getting all of us together is going to be hard in a great big meeting. How would you feel about a representative of each board or a couple of representatives of each boards to meet and work those things out and bring them back to us? Would that be amenable to you all?
That would be fine with me.
Okay.
If it's okay with the rest of the board
Let's
members.
see. Yeah, I'll ask maybe for some thumbs up on that. Do people okay with that? Can I see some thumbs from the commissioners and the council? I see mostly thumbs. Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like what we'll do then is it sounds like the process is that the commissioners will meet with a school board next week. I think you said next week. And you all will have that discussion with them. And then we'll ask for appointment of a couple of representatives from each of the boards to meet and work out any of the remaining issues and try to do so with dispatch. Does that sound good, everybody? Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. I appreciate I guess the plan that's being laid out. The missing item though is the conversation around funding and acknowledging that we're in budget season on, I think, both sides. It would be amiss to not at least have that conversation as well, in addition to the bylaws. I think thinking that they're going to go forward and stipends is the only expense is kind of ridiculous. So just noting that.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think, Councilman Freeman, it's definitely something that has to be funded. I mean, you can't get the work done on zero funding. It's just not going to work.
Which is why I think it's an awesome idea to bring the school board along and make sure that, whatever funding sources we have align.
All right, thank you. Colleagues, any other questions or comments at this point? While we're doing the shout outs, I did want to also shout out Sharon Williams and Deborah Giles. The county's gotten their shout outs. I don't want to leave out our awesome staff who are doing the GARE work and the racial equity work and have for a long time. And we're very proud of it and appreciative of their work. All right, colleagues, I think we've done it on this item. I want to thank Ms. Pierce, Ms. Rashied-Henry, Judge O'Neill, and Dr. Haldeman. I didn't give you your doctor. We are real grateful to you all. Thank you so much for your great work, for being with us today. Sounds like the process, I'm going to try to outline it one more time, is the county commission is going to meet with the school board, have this discussion with them. The chairs will appoint a couple of members to represent each of the bodies in a discussion of how to move these remaining items forward. And then the boards will vote on the bylaws and hopefully we can get this thing moving. Okay. Everybody good?
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we are moving to our item number 4, which is Early Childhood Action Plan. And I see the folks here from Durham Children's Initiative. And I see Mr. Reese, Ms. Elander, and Ms. Delaune. Who will be presenting today?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will start and probably engage my colleagues.
Great, go for it.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, just giving a little bit of insight. I know that I work with Durham Children's Initiative and I'm privy to a lot more information than my colleagues. And so I wanted to make sure that this was shared, as it's work that I've been doing for a long time. And the county's been involved more so than the city. And so I just wanted to bring the city side up to speed and make sure that our staff had heard much of what was going on, because there was some concern about missing in a previous conversation around what the county was actually doing around prevention and community outreach. And so I just wanted to bring this on along with the Durham trial update as well.
Thank you, Council Member. We do appreciate your bringing this item to us. Thank you. Mr. Reese.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, our esteemed leaders. I want to talk a little bit about the Durham Early Childhood Action Plan. This is a plan that's actually going to create a pathway for young people from birth through age 8. Okay, there we go. Just to give you some context, 2019, Governor Cooper had the vision to create an early childhood action plan for all children. He wanted young people just to have a healthy start. I want to put this in context as I began to look at this process. Prior to an early childhood action plan, young people age birth to 8, you did the best you possibly could with the resources and access that you had. If you had access to those resources, well, then your world was amazing. If you didn't, well, then you and your family sort of worked it out. That's not an equitable process. The governor engaged Rebecca Blanchard from his policy team to coordinate this action plan. And I do want to mention as well, Rebecca Blanchard is also, she's a Durham resident. So I think that was a great choice on the governor's behalf. There were 10 goal items that were core goals within this plan. When we brought the governor to Durham, we sat Governor Cooper down in the offices of DCI, overlaid the work of the Durham Children's Initiative, and then also overlaid the work that happened back in Durham as we thought about young people from birth through age 8. As you can imagine, the governor was totally amazed, not only with our work, but also with the synergy and the alignment. He then also really gave the endorsement that this plan that he had created really should be a guide for counties throughout North Carolina. We have this opportunity now to be the first county in North Carolina to create this comprehensive plan that models the governor's plan for children aged birth to 8. There we go. I want to just take a moment to go ahead and also just acknowledge our Board of County Commissioners, Board Chair, Commissioner Howerton. Thank you so much for your continued leadership. I also want to acknowledge Ellen Reckhow back in this process. Ellen's been an advocate for young people, for children across the board her entire career. We were able to present the plan back to the Board of County Commissioners. The commission, the board decided and voted unanimously that Durham Children's Initiative should lead this process. This is a planning process. This is an opportunity for us to bring together folks from all across the county, all across the city, not just those who are in the service aspect of our work, but also those parents, to bring those grandparents together, to bring our broader community together and think about what this plan might look like for Durham. I want to move to the next one, please. Here we are. This is the framework. And so as we were beginning to think about what this process might look like, we decided it would be best to have a public-private partnership. And so this is also understand this is us as we think about what this plan looks like, really thinking in the future about what implementation also should look like and how it's reflective of this plan. There's funding from the county. There's also then the project leadership and administration coordination from the Durham Children's Initiative, in addition to funding as well. And this is laying the groundwork as we think about what future investment looks like back in implementation. There are these 4 core goal areas that mimic or mirror the governor's plan. At the end of the day, what this really should look like from a planning perspective is a lot of work from within the entire county, from residents within the county, within the city, and then recommendations for how this plan can begin to move forward. The work is happening in a collective approach. This is a true collective impact, I think, at its absolute best. Knowing also that the funding, thinking about an implementation side, will be braided. And so there's the public as well as private philanthropic, in addition to foundation philanthropic support, thinking about support which will then align back with the implementation of the recommended strategies. I want to introduce you and bring in Kate Elander. Kate is the early childhood coordinator for the county. She's just been phenomenal as she's been working as part of this process. We are beginning to have success and have had success over the last several months working through the pandemic as we are creating this plan because of, I think, the level of intentionality. I also believe the determination and the perseverance to actually deliver a working plan for Durham County. Kate?
Thanks for those kind words, David. I appreciate it. Nice to see everyone this morning. Thank you for having us to share more information about the Early Childhood Action Plan. I just want to take time to highlight all of the engagement that is coming to bear on the development of this plan for Durham. I'm not going to read this slide for you, but as you can see, there's just been a ton of participation from county staff, from city and other municipal entities, from our institutions, from our nonprofit organizations, from community-based organizations, from all of the different collaboratives that are doing early childhood systems building and intentional planning and alignment work in our early childhood system in Durham. And of course, super grateful for the elected officials who have been joining us, including Councilwoman Freeman. Commissioner Carter has also joined in the process too, so super grateful for that engagement. It's also important to highlight that we have been working as much as possible to lead an inclusive planning process that offers leadership opportunities and opportunities to learn from and draw on the wisdom of our community, parents and folks with lived experience with our early childhood systems. Bonnie will talk a little bit more about how we're moving into phase 2 of this planning process with action planning, which will work even more to leverage the knowledge and the wisdom and the expertise of parents in our community, particularly parents from marginalized communities. But I think it's just important to note that doing a strategic planning process like this during a pandemic and during a national reckoning on race and racism is no small feat. And we've just been incredibly grateful for the folks who have been willing to spend their time on this planning effort. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to highlight a few updates about the process so far. We've been meeting in 4 work groups across different areas of the plan since September. And as I mentioned earlier, we've really been working to center community voice, both in some of the more traditional ways around surveys and focus groups, but also in some more equitable ways in terms of participation and leadership on work groups and in advisory and consultancy capacities. And we've been really grateful for that leadership. I think something that feels very important to me, and I know you all were having this conversation related to the crime cabinet as well and the community safety and wellness task force. I think that it's so important that some of the root cause issues be lifted up in this type of planning process. There's obviously a ton of work that can be done around improving services and programs and program delivery, but I think also in this type of plan, if things are going to really change for early childhood outcomes in our community, we also need to be talking about family economic security and systemic racism, and that is happening in this plan. And I am so grateful to be a part of it. So the work groups have identified 21 recommendations to do action planning around. So those work groups are transitioning into small action teams of 4 or 5 folks who will be identifying strategies for investment or for other types of work that may not require funding, but might require some introspection and reflection and shifts to policy and practice locally. We're on track to deliver high priority recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on March 1st at their work session for consideration as a part of this year's budget cycle. And the Early Childhood Action Plan will be finalized in June. So I will toss it to Bonnie.
Thanks, Kate, and thank you all for having us and welcoming us this morning. Perfect. So I just wanted to give you guys a sense of the timeline we have here. So the discovery phase was that those work groups starting the monthly meetings and analyzing a bunch of local data relevant to the North Carolina ECAP targets and sub-targets and taking an inventory of all the incredible services and supports that we have to support young children and their families here in Durham. And we heard back from parents and caregivers and guardians through the various mechanisms that Kate talked about. And we used all that information then in those work groups to identify common challenges and strengths of our early childhood system, really trying to focus in on root causes and prioritizing potential strategies. And we've also been aligning those and uplifting strategies that have been highlighted by other task forces or reports here in Durham, like Durham's Racial Equity Task Force. The urgent and loving call to action has been important for us to make sure that those strategies have been highlighted because they're all critically important to supporting our young children birth through 8 who live in families and communities, and all of those pieces need to be supported. And we now have these small teams as we're moving forward into that phase, that step 4 into the action planning. We have small teams made up of parents, community members, direct service providers, and more. And they are building out action plans for each of these strategies and really getting into the details, ensuring we have strong community input and feedback to that process along the way. And we will be writing and releasing the Durham Early Childhood Action Plan by June, which then will mark the beginning of implementation, which we are working to build a braided public and private funding strategy, as David mentioned, so that we can implement these strategies and meet our shared goals. So on the next slide, you can see just a quick highlight of our Early Childhood Action Planning website, which houses much of the details into this process. You can dive in to those 21 recommendations and to much of the Durham data and the way that we kind of went through this process to prioritize strategies together as a Durham community. So I can actually put the link into the chat here, but for those tuning in, if you just search Durham Early Childhood Action Plan, it should come up on Google, but that website will have, much of the detail and also opportunities to get involved as well. There's a link to register your interest that we can reach out with more info, but we absolutely, for this body, look forward to continuing to bring updates and keeping you abreast of the plans. But happy to answer any questions that you all have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that report from the folks from Durham Children's Initiative. Thanks to Councilmember Freeman for requesting this item. I do want to say before we get going, Mr. Reese, that you were very clever to hire Ms. Delaune to do this work. I know that because she is one of my former students and was an absolutely super brilliant, super capable student, and I have been keeping up with her since, and it's so awesome to not only have her back in Durham, but back doing this fantastic work. So I've got a couple of students on this call, including Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, and I can just tell you that's a lot of fun. Councilmember Freeman.
I appreciate you pointing that out, Mayor Schewel. It makes so much sense that she would be your student. I unfortunately am not, but I'm at that great school down the street, North Carolina Central. And I just want to say that I think that it's kismet, because all of this work is happening in our city with the county. And I know that Mayor Pro Tem Johnson will kind of understand the sense of where I'm going with this conversation and pushing us to be engaged with as a city. Pulls a page from our buddy in St. Louis, Tashara Jones, the city treasurer, who was very wise in figuring out how to create a child savings account from her parking budget. And so I'm interested in figuring out how we can partner with the county on this work, as I've been pushing as not just staff, but also as a public official, public elected official, and just trying to make sure that we're engaging at a level that kind of honors where you began with the child savings account many years ago with Durham Children's Initiative. And I would love for us to figure out how to coordinate on a baby bond, honestly. I know that it's probably, a little ways away, acknowledging that COVID is here, but I think it's important to start the planning now. And so I really would love to engage both of my colleagues on this call in a conversation that would lead us in that direction. And so I'm glad that they were able to share that update. And I'm sure the county would appreciate any support that we could offer.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Other comments from commissioners or council members at this point, or questions? Commissioner Howerton.
I just want to say thanks for the support for the report. I've seen most of it before, but when it comes to our little ones, that is our future. So the county has been participating in universal pre-K for quite some time. And, I think about all the awards that I've received over the years, and the one that I get the biggest chuckle out of is being the Baby Advocate Award. That one just tickles me. That what we do today impacts our little ones. So I just want to thank David. David goes back a long ways working and doing this kind of work. And I remember when they first started. So, and then Deidreana, it's been great seeing you working with David and your team. So we just look forward to the work continuing, and, we can look at the county for whatever we can do to make sure, to ensure that this work continues at a pace that is different than what it is now. You always want to pick up the pace.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments? Commissioner Jacobs?
Thank you. And I didn't realize it was you, Councilmember Freeman, that asked for this presentation. I thought it came from our board, so thank you. And it is really exciting to share this plan with the city, because it is for all of Durham. And when we even think about the Racial Equity Task Force, this work is very, very much tied into racial equity and addressing institutional and systemic racism. When, the county, our board has really been focused on investing in children and our families for a long time now, because when we looked at the data and the research around, brain development and every aspect of social emotional support for pregnant mothers and making sure that every single child and every single parent has what they need from, the moment their child is born, so that they have an equal chance to succeed once they start school. We realize with our limited funding, this is the most important area that we can really invest in. But what's also exciting about this plan, when I looked, Bonnie, at your timeline, is that you have the action at the same time as the fundraising. And getting back to the comments about, the Racial Equity Task Force needing adequate funding, we know that this is going to take a lot of funding. Our Durham pre-K program, which we've invested over $10 million in, it's going to take $15 million a year to make sure that every 4-year-old in Durham County has access to high quality pre-K. So we are going to need everybody to be a part of this in our community. And I know that Kate is very excited. It's very exciting. She's being asked to present at the upcoming Duke Board of Trustees meeting about all of Durham County's investments in early childhood. But we and just to let you all know as well that we're working on this with Durham Public Schools and the Board of Education. They have committed to having every single elementary school have a pre-K in every single elementary school. So we're also partnering with the school board and Durham Public Schools on this, which is important. But this is again talking about the crime cabinet, ending poverty. This is really the most important work that we can be doing. So we do welcome the city to be a part of it in any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to ask if Commissioner Carter has any comments. Commissioner Carter, I believe you're still with us. You've been probably our earliest champion of universal pre-K in this county, and wondered if you had any comments that you wanted to offer.
Well, you are so kind to open up my window here for a few comments. I just am so grateful for the leadership of Durham Children's Initiative, Kate and Bonnie and David and their whole team, and the families and community members that they've brought in, trying to let substantive leadership happen from the community level. I know that this group really believes in that and knows how important that is. But yeah, early childhood education and being sure kids have all their basic needs met and are healthy and have safe housing. And, this work intersects city, county, school board boundaries. And that's why it's so important that we have a coordinator helping us align our efforts and maximize the collective impact that David mentioned. So, woo, hurrah. I'm really glad that it's going forward. Looking forward to the action plan starting too, right? In June, it looked like from the timeline.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments, colleagues, or questions? I think Councilmember Freeman.
I just want to highlight that that this work is, I think, just beaconing back to the first item with the crime cabinet. It comes from a place of Commissioner Reckhow acknowledging just how much that, if we step back and look at how children are reared and supported, that this is really where, the crime cabinet work should be happening, and making sure that our children are covered. And so starting from birth to 8 is just one aspect. And I just want to note that there are many aspects of the work. And the Early Childhood Action Plan is not just limited to Durham Children's Initiative. It's the actions of all the different agencies, all the different Head Starts, all the different community groups that are all working towards the same goals. And so I just want to make sure that the city is on board with that as well. I also just want to point out that it would be great to hear from Commissioner Alam. I know she's new to the work, but I'm sure she has a lot to add. And so I just want to make sure we make space for those who often step back and leadership.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Freeman, for all of your work on this initiative. And this is definitely something we've heard so much about universal pre-K and the importance of it. And I, for one, am so excited to be able to be on the board in a time where we're moving forward with trying to implement universal pre-K and really seeing the benefits of really every aspect of our city and county government. It comes back to what investments we make in our youth, because when we're talking about forward looking and having policies that actually drastically impact future generations, we need to start with those generations when they're young. And, you know, all of us here, I'm sure, know that like $1 investment in a universal pre-K program leads to like an $8 return in a student's life, a child's life. And that really is a great, great impact that we're making when we're talking about racial equity and building a more diverse economic prosperity for Durham. So I'm really excited about this work.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Alam. Any other comments, colleagues, or questions? Well, I'll just add my appreciation for the great work that this represents and add my excitement about it. I will say that of all the things that our county commission has done in the last several years, I really think the most important has been you all's increasing financial commitment to universal pre-K. I don't think anything that you all have done, and you all have done many good things, has been more important than that. And so I just want to thank you all. I appreciate our commissioners for that. We all have our different areas that we work in, and you all have really stepped up to the plate in this one. And just want to thank you and appreciate my county commission colleagues. So Mr. Reese, Ms. Elander, Ms. Delaune, we are so grateful that you are with us today. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And we know we'll hear a lot more about it and look forward to being supportive. Thank you. All right, colleagues, now we're down to our final item. And I'm going to, Councilmember Freeman has asked that we show a video from Durham Tri. Councilmember Freeman, would you like to say anything about it before we get started?
Sure, just sharing. I know that some of the conversations we've had in the past miss some of the things that are happening on the county side, and as fortunate as I am to work with Durham Children's Initiative, I get to hear about a lot of the things that are happening on the county side. And so acknowledging this is also a funded project that happens through the county with the community health workers. And I know that Dr. Boone has been able to secure federal funds as well as state funds to do the work that she does. And so I just want to make sure that we're lining up all of the work that's already happening with some of the things that we're doing, like Bull City United or many of the other initiatives that have been coming forward. And so I think in this budget cycle, I noticed that it just seemed like there was a gap in an understanding of just how much is happening across the county. And so just sharing.
Thank you, Councilmember. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Sorry to interrupt y'all, but if there's supposed to be audio, don't hear it.
Yeah. Is there supposed to be audio with this? Let's start again and try with the audio if we can do it. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, I'm seeing some very wise. There we go. Right. We got it.
Oh, okay.
Working now. Thanks. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. All right, colleagues. Councilmember Freeman?
Thank you. I know at this point, this would be where Dr. Boone would mention that, you know, she works with those grassroots level of folks and not always those grass tops. And it's unfortunate that we weren't able to get our scheduling together so that she could be here to kind of cover it herself. But I did want to note that this work plays a huge role in engaging people in the community that aren't often engaged in those marginalized areas across the county. And we're fortunate enough to have Dr. Boone's body of work in Durham, but I do want to just acknowledge that it's been expanding beyond Durham into other counties because it's just that good. And so I do think it's worth noting that it would be great to support our own, you know, homegrown nonprofit organization that is doing such phenomenal work during this COVID pandemic. And I think it said like 11 different counties. And so just acknowledging that, I felt like it was important. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Colleagues, we've reached the end of our agenda. I want to just say a little bit about agenda planning for these meetings. Commissioner Howerton and I are determined to keep these meetings moving quickly, having only the necessary agenda items and making it through our agenda in a timely way, which I'm pleased to say that we did today. The meetings are scheduled for 9 to 11, but Commissioner Howerton and I are in agreement that we don't really want to do that unless we have to. She and I had a good discussion about that. And so what I want to say is that the agenda items, Commissioner Howerton, of course, will be presiding at the next one of these meetings, and she will be leading the agenda process for that. And so if you have agenda items, please let us both know, but particularly let her know. And we'll be working with we also agreed that we'll be working with the city and county managers to help vet those items. So if you do have items, please let us know what they are well in advance if you can, and give us some explanation about what they're about. That would be really important. And then we'll take up whether or not we are able to put them on the agenda. Okay. Any final comments before we adjourn? Commissioner Jacobs.
Well, my question was going to be exactly what you just said, Mayor, which I would love to hear more about. And Councilmember Freeman references is about the city's involvement with Bull City United. That's something that we have not gotten any information about and would love to hear more about. And hopefully at our next meeting, we could hear more about that. And then also the tax assistant grant program, having follow-up discussions about that. So in light of what's the results have been for our tax deferral program, and Mecklenburg County now actually moving forward with the very similar program that we had all considered before. So I hope those will be on our next agenda.
Thank you very much. And I think it would be good to go ahead and, even though you've said them and we know you're interested in them, just put them in an email would be great. And I agree. Those are two important items. Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Howerton.
I just want to say kudos, Mr. Mayor. You finished up at 10:33. How about that?
I'm trying to follow your stellar example.
That's really great. So I look forward to our next meeting.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Colleagues, if there are no, Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the item that we talked about earlier was not forgotten, and noting that Councilmember Reese and I are going to look into pulling those reports together and making sure we share out the follow-up, and also just acknowledging that I don't think we opened with kind of like a celebratory, cheer, but I think it's important to note that both the city and the county have been working towards a non-discrimination ordinance, and making sure that people are not discriminated against based on not just gender and sexuality, religion, but but also hair and hairstyles, hair textures, and support of the Crown Act, which I think is also very important as we work together across the city and the county.
Thank you,
Just-
Councilmember.
just-
Duly noted.
Yeah, and just to let you know, I have a meeting tomorrow to discuss those issues. So we are working on it. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, thank you all very much. I'm now going to declare this meeting adjourned at 10:34 a.m. and look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.